The concrete was cold against Ethan Corleone's cheek, but he couldn't remember when he'd stopped caring about things like that. 3 days without food will do that to a man. 3 months without hope will finish the job. His fingers trembled as they scraped against the sidewalk, searching for balance he'd lost somewhere between his corner office and this downtown alley. The world tilted sideways. Or maybe that was just him, collapsing in slow motion while hundreds of shoes stepped around him like he was already dead. Nobody stops for ghosts. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, you're about to hear a story that'll remind you why a single moment of kindness can change absolutely everything. I want to know, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do me a favor and hit that button. Trust me, you're going to want to follow this journey all the way through. Now, let me take you back to the moment everything changed. The moment when a man who'd lost everything was about to receive something he never expected. Ethan's vision blurred. The last thing he saw clearly was a pair of worn sneakers stopping in front of his face. Young, small. Most people pretended not to see him, but these shoes planted themselves right there, refusing to move. Sir? Sir, can you hear me? The voice was young. Female. Scared. He wanted to tell her to run, to save herself the trouble of caring about someone like him. But his mouth wouldn't cooperate, and darkness was creeping in from the edges like ink spreading through water. 6 months ago, Ethan Corleone had been untouchable. His tech startup had just secured a $12 million investment. His name was on Forbes' 30 Under 30 list. His penthouse apartment overlooked the city like a kingdom he'd conquered with nothing but brilliant code and impossible hours. Then Vincent Kane walked into his life with a handshake and a smile that should have come with a warning label. Partner, Vincent had said, gripping Ethan's hand with both of his own. That's what I want us to be. True partners. Equal stake, equal say, equal reward. Ethan had been so hungry for validation, for someone to share the weight of building something revolutionary, that he'd signed the papers without a second thought. Vincent's credentials were impeccable. His connections were golden. His references glowed. Every single one of them was fake. By the time Ethan discovered the truth, Vincent had systematically drained every account, leveraged every asset, and vanished with everything, including Ethan's reputation. The investors sued. The banks foreclosed. The lawyers circled like vultures. And Ethan? Ethan discovered that the fall from the top floor was exactly as brutal as people said it was. Please, somebody help. The girl's voice cut through the fog in his brain. He forced his eyes open. She was young, 16, maybe 17, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and eyes that held more concern than any stranger had shown him in weeks. I'm calling 911, she said, phone already out. Don't. The words scraped out of Ethan's throat like broken glass. No, hospitals. Can't pay. She hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Her eyes searched his face, and he wondered what she saw. The stubble that had become a beard? The designer suit jacket he still wore, now stained and torn? The expensive watch he'd refused to pawn because it was the last gift his mother gave him before she died? When did you last eat? She asked. The question was so simple, so direct, that Ethan felt something crack inside his chest. When had he last eaten? Yesterday? The day before? Time had become meaningless when every minute was just another exercise in survival. I don't remember. The girl, she couldn't have been more than a kid, made a decision. He could see it happen in real time, the way her jaw set and her shoulders squared. She pocketed her phone and grabbed his arm. Come on. There's a diner across the street. Can you walk? I don't have any. I didn't ask if you could pay. I asked if you could walk. Something in her tone, sharp, practical, no nonsense, reminded him of his mother. The same voice she'd used when he was 12 and tried to convince her he was too sick for school, but not too sick for video games. The memory hurt more than his empty stomach. With her help, he made it across the street. Each step felt like moving through concrete. But the girl, Mia, she said her name was Mia Gruber, kept a steady grip on his arm, guiding him like he was something precious instead of something broken. The diner was warm. That was the first thing Ethan noticed. Warm and bright, and filled with the smell of coffee and frying bacon. His stomach cramped so violently he nearly doubled over. Mia led him to a corner booth, away from curious stares. She slid into the seat across from him and flagged down a waitress with the confidence of someone used to taking charge. 2 breakfast specials, extra toast, coffee, orange juice, and water, lots of water. She looked at Ethan. When did you last have water? He couldn't answer. He was too busy trying not to cry. What was happening? Why was this stranger, this kid, showing him more compassion than anyone had in months? What did she want from him? You don't have to talk, Mia said quietly, as if reading his mind. Just eat when the food comes. And drink the water first, slow sips, or you'll make yourself sick. The way she said it, like she'd done this before, made Ethan wonder what this girl had seen in her young life. What experiences had taught her how to help a homeless man without making him feel like a charity case? But the questions faded when the water arrived. He forced himself to follow her instructions, small sips, even though every cell in his body screamed to gulp it down. The cool liquid felt like a miracle sliding down his throat. So, Mia said, wrapping her hands around her own coffee cup, I'm going to guess you weren't always living on the street. It wasn't a question. It was an observation, made in that same matter-of-fact tone. Ethan found himself nodding. What happened? 2 words. Simple, direct, and somehow, sitting across from this teenage girl in a worn diner booth, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in months. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, someone might actually listen. The breakfast special arrived. Eggs, bacon, toast, hash browns, everything golden and steaming and impossibly beautiful. Ethan stared at it like he'd forgotten what real food looked like. Maybe he had. Slow, Mia reminded him gently. Your stomach's going to hate you if you rush. She was right. He forced himself to take small bites, even though his body wanted to inhale everything in sight. The first taste of scrambled eggs nearly made him sob. How had he taken something this simple for granted? How had he spent years grabbing takeout without a second thought, never realizing that one day he'd be grateful for a stranger's kindness just to eat? Mia picked at her own food, watching him with those sharp, assessing eyes. She wasn't gawking or pitying. She was observing, like she was trying to piece together a puzzle. You're educated, she said after a moment. The way you talk, even now. College. MIT. The word slipped out before Ethan could stop it. Computer science. Full scholarship. And you ended up here. Not a question. So either drugs, mental illness, or someone screwed you over. The bluntness should have offended him. Instead, it made him laugh, a harsh, broken sound that surprised them both. Door number 3, he said. Someone screwed me over so thoroughly, I didn't even see it coming until everything was gone. Mia leaned back, arms crossed. Tell me. And for the first time in months, Ethan did. He told her about the startup, about building code at 3 in the morning, about the rush of watching something grow from an idea in his head to a working platform. He told her about the investors, the media attention, the feeling that he was finally proving everyone who doubted him wrong. Then he told her about Vincent Kane. He was perfect, Ethan said, the bitterness coating every word. Everything I needed, business experience, investor connections, that smooth confidence I'd never had. He talked about partnership like it was sacred, like we were building something together. But he wasn't, Mia said quietly. He was robbing me blind. Ethan's fork clattered against the plate. For 6 months, he systematically transferred funds, forged my signature on loans, leveraged the company assets for his own investments. By the time I realized what was happening, he'd vanished. And I was left holding $12 million in debt I never authorized. Mia's eyes widened. Didn't you press charges? With what evidence? Vincent was careful. He made everything look legitimate, like I'd approved every transaction. My lawyers said proving fraud would take years and cost money I no longer had. The investors just wanted their money back. They didn't care about the truth. So they took everything. Everything, Ethan confirmed. The penthouse, the car, my savings, my reputation. I tried to fight it, but the legal system moves slow when you're the defendant. I lost the company, the patents, even my personal accounts. Within 2 months, I went from Forbes' list to a homeless shelter. He paused, remembering those early days, the shock, the disbelief, the crushing weight of watching his entire life dismantled piece by piece. The shelter kicked me out after I got into a fight with a guy who tried to steal my mother's watch. This watch. He touched the expensive timepiece on his wrist, scratched, worn, but still ticking. It's all I have left of her. She died when I was 20. Saved for 2 years to buy it for my graduation. Mia's expression softened. You're not going back there, are you? To the shelter? Can't. I'm blacklisted. Ethan took another bite of toast, forcing it down. Been on the street for 3 weeks now. Tried getting work. But turns out nobody wants to hire someone whose face was plastered all over the news as a fraud and a failure. But you weren't the fraud. Doesn't matter. The story's already written. I'm the cautionary tale, the arrogant kid who flew too close to the sun and crashed. He met her eyes. Why are you doing this? Why help me? Mia was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. My dad, she said simply. He was a veteran. Came back from Afghanistan with PTSD, couldn't keep a job, couldn't sleep, couldn't function. My mom left when I was 8. Said she couldn't handle it anymore. Ethan's chest tightened. Dad tried. God, he tried so hard. But the system failed him. The VA appointments took months. The benefits got tangled in red tape. He ended up on the street when I was 12. She blinked hard, fighting tears. I lived with my grandmother. Spent every weekend looking for him, bringing him food, trying to convince him to get help. Did he? Eventually. It took 3 years, but he got into a program. Got clean, got stable, got housing. He works as a mechanic now. Nothing fancy, but he's alive and he's present. She looked up, and Ethan saw steel in her eyes. But it never would have happened if people hadn't stopped to help. If strangers hadn't shown up when it mattered. So you're paying it forward. I'm refusing to walk past someone who needs help. Mia's voice was fierce. Everyone has a story. Everyone deserves a chance to tell it. And honestly, that's what this channel is all about. The stories that remind us we're all human, all struggling, all capable of both falling and rising. If you're feeling this story, drop a comment and let me know. Have you ever been helped by a stranger, or been that stranger for someone else? I'd love to hear about it. Ethan felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Hope. No, that was too dangerous. But maybe possibility. What now, he asked. Mia pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. Now we start fixing this. You said Vincent Kane disappeared, but people don't just vanish. They leave traces. Digital footprints. Bank records. Someone somewhere knows where he went. I can't afford a private investigator. Who said anything about hiring one? Mia grinned, sharp and determined. My best friend's dad is a forensic accountant. My cousin works in data recovery, and I'm pretty good at social media stalking. She looked at him, challenge in her eyes. Vincent Kane stole your life. Don't you want to take it back? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility and danger, and something Ethan hadn't felt in so long he'd forgotten what to call it. Determination. Yes, he said, and the word tasted like a promise. I want to take it back. Mia smiled. Then let's get started. The public library became their headquarters. Mia led Ethan through the glass doors like she owned the place, ignoring the librarian's suspicious glance at his disheveled appearance. She found them a corner table near the back, away from prying eyes, and commandeered 2 computers. First rule of investigation, she said, fingers already flying across the keyboard. Vincent Kane isn't his real name. Nobody pulls off a con this sophisticated without covering their tracks. We find his real identity, we find him. Ethan stared at the screen, his mind struggling to shift from survival mode to problem-solving mode. I saw his driver's license. His passport. Everything checked out. Fake documents are easy if you know where to buy them. Mia pulled up a search engine. What was his email address? The one he used for company business. Ethan rattled it off from memory, kane.ventures@techmail.com. Mia copied it into a dozen different search bars, cross-referencing databases, social media platforms, business registries. Nothing. Dead end, she muttered. He scrubbed everything. But, she leaned back, eyes narrowed in thought. You said he had investor connections. He must have used those to gain your trust. Who introduced you? Nobody. He approached me at a tech conference in Seattle. Said he'd been following my work, wanted to discuss partnership opportunities. Ethan closed his eyes, forcing himself to remember details he'd tried to forget. He knew everything about my platform, technical specs, market positioning, even the problems I hadn't solved yet. Which conference? Tech Summit Northwest. 18 months ago. Mia's fingers danced across the keyboard, pulling up the conference website, registration lists, speaker schedules. If he was there, he registered. Even with a fake name, he'd need a credit card, an email, something. But the conference records were locked behind a paywall and privacy policies. Mia cursed under her breath, then pulled out her phone. Calling in reinforcements, she said, dialing a number. Hey, Dad. Yeah, I'm fine. Listen, I need a favor. Remember that forensic accountant you play poker with? Mr. Chen? Think he'd be willing to make some calls. Ethan watched, stunned, as this 17-year-old girl orchestrated an investigation with the efficiency of a seasoned detective. She spoke in rapid-fire sentences, explaining just enough to get her father on board without revealing how far down this rabbit hole she was planning to go. When she hung up, her eyes were bright with determination. Dad's calling Mr. Chen. If Vincent accessed any financial systems using that conference as a reference point, Chen can trace the digital signature. She turned back to the computer. Meanwhile, we work another angle. You said the investors sued you. They had to provide evidence, bank records, transfer authorizations, loan documents. Where's that paperwork? Gone. When I lost the penthouse, I lost everything. The lawyers kept the files. Which law firm? Sterling and Associates. But they won't talk to me. I still owe them $80,000 in unpaid fees. Mia grinned, sharp and dangerous. They don't have to talk to you. They just have to talk to someone. She started typing again, pulling up the law firm's website, their client portal, their staff directory. Then she did something that made Ethan's heart stop. She created a fake email account, Mia Gruber at techreview.com, and composed a message to one of the junior associates at Sterling and Associates, claiming to be a journalist writing a piece about startup fraud and requesting comment on the Corleone case. You can't. That's, Ethan sputtered. Relax. I'm not asking for privileged information. Just public statements. Mia hit send before he could stop her. Sometimes you have to shake the tree to see what falls out. This is crazy. This is necessary. She looked at him, and her expression softened. You've been surviving. Now we're fighting. There's a difference. Before Ethan could respond, Mia's phone buzzed. She grabbed it, eyes scanning the screen, and her face went pale. Oh my God. What? She turned the phone so he could see. It was a text from her father. Chen found something. Vincent Kane wired $4.2 million to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands 2 days before he disappeared. Account holder, Vincent Kensington. Ethan's blood turned to ice. Kensington. That's his real last name. Chen's pulling records now. Says there's more, multiple aliases, multiple cons, dating back at least a decade. Mia's voice was shaking. Ethan, Vincent Kane isn't just a con artist. He's a professional. You weren't his first victim. The revelation hit Ethan like a physical blow. All this time, he'd thought he'd been stupid, naive, too trusting. But Vincent had been playing this game long before Ethan entered the picture. This wasn't about one bad decision. This was about a predator who'd perfected his craft. How many others? Ethan whispered. Chen's still digging, but preliminary search shows at least 6 similar cases over the past 12 years. Different cities, different industries, same pattern. Find a rising star, pose as a business partner, drain everything, disappear. Did any of them get their money back? Mia's silence was answer enough. Ethan stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. He walked to the window, staring out at the city that had once been his kingdom and was now his prison. 6 victims. Probably more. How much had Vincent stolen in total? 20 million? 50? How many lives had he destroyed? And how many more would he destroy if someone didn't stop him? The Sterling associate responded. Mia said suddenly. He wants to meet. Says he has information about your case that the public should know. Ethan turned. When? Tomorrow. 3 o'clock. Coffee shop on 5th Street. She looked up at him, fear and excitement warring in her expression. This is really happening. We're actually going to find him. We're going to do more than find him. Ethan's voice was steady for the first time in months. We're going to make sure he never does this to anyone else. But even as he said it, a darker thought crept into his mind. Vincent Kensington had evaded justice for 12 years. He had money, resources, and a head start. What made Ethan think he could succeed where law enforcement had failed? Mia's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, and her expression shifted. Confusion, then shock, then something close to fear. What? Ethan asked. She held up the phone with trembling fingers. It was an email sent to her journalist alias. No subject line, no signature. Just a single sentence in the body. Stop looking for Vincent Kane, or you'll discover why his victims never found him. The library suddenly felt too quiet, too exposed. Ethan's eyes darted to the windows, the exits, the other patrons hunched over their computers. Someone was watching them, and whoever it was wanted them to know it. "We should go," Mia whispered. Ethan nodded, grabbing their things. As they hurried toward the exit, he couldn't shake the feeling that this investigation had just become far more dangerous than either of them had anticipated. Vincent Kane, Vincent Kensington, wasn't just a con artist. He was something worse. And now, they'd gotten his attention. They didn't stop moving until they were 6 blocks away, ducking into a crowded shopping mall where the press of bodies felt safer than open streets. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs, his eyes scanning every face, searching for threats he wouldn't recognize until it was too late. How did they find us so fast? Mia's voice was barely audible over the mall's ambient noise. "We've been investigating for less than 3 hours. Vincent had systems in place. Alerts, maybe." Ethan's mind raced through possibilities. If Chin accessed certain databases, that could have triggered something. Or the email to Sterling. If someone there is working with Vincent, then we just painted a target on our backs. Mia looked sick. "Oh God, what did I do?" "My dad, Mr. Chun, if Vincent comes after them." "Hey." Ethan grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Your dad's a veteran. Chin's a forensic accountant who probably deals with criminals regularly. They can handle themselves. But we need to be smart about this." Smart would have been leaving this alone. Too late for that. Ethan released her, running a hand through his unkempt hair. "We either back down and spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders, or we finish what we started. Fast. Before Vincent figures out who we are." Mia took a shaky breath, then nodded. "The meeting tomorrow. We still go." "We go? But we prepare." Ethan pulled out his phone, a cracked burner he'd bought at a pawn shop weeks ago, and started making notes. "We need leverage. Information Vincent doesn't know we have. Something we can use to protect ourselves if this goes sideways." "Like what?" "Like proof. Real, documented proof that Vincent Kensington is a serial con artist. Names, dates, victims, stolen amounts. We compile everything Chin found, and we back it up somewhere Vincent can't reach." Mia's expression shifted from fear to determination. "And if we have that proof, we're not just investigating him. We're threatening his entire operation." "Exactly. We become too dangerous to touch." Ethan's voice dropped. "But we need more than Chin's preliminary search. We need witnesses. Other victims who'll go on record. The Sterling associate. He said he has information the public should know." "Then that's where we start." Ethan checked the time, 4:47 p.m. "We have less than 24 hours. I need a shower, clean clothes, and a place to sleep that isn't a park bench." Mia bit her lip, clearly wrestling with something. Then she made a decision. "You can stay at my place. My grandmother won't mind. She's always taking in strays." She held up a hand before Ethan could protest. "And before you say no, remember that you're currently homeless and being hunted by a professional criminal. Pride is a luxury you can't afford." She was right. Ethan swallowed his objections and nodded. Mia's grandmother lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that had seen better decades. The woman who answered the door was small, silver-haired, and had the same sharp eyes as her granddaughter. "Grammy, this is Ethan. He needs help." The grandmother, Mrs. Gruber, looked Ethan up and down with the assessing gaze of someone who'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed by much. Then she stepped aside. "Bathrooms down the hall. There's soap, towels, and some of my late husband's clothes in the linen closet. They'll be big on you, but clean beats stylish." She pointed at Mia. "You. Kitchen. Explain." While Mia briefed her grandmother, Ethan stood under hot water for the first time in weeks and felt pieces of himself starting to reconnect. The man in the mirror afterward was still gaunt, still haunted, but at least he was clean. The clothes, khakis and a button-down shirt that hung loose on his frame, made him look almost human again. When he emerged, Mia and her grandmother were huddled over a laptop at the kitchen table, whispering urgently. "Sit," Mrs. Gruber ordered, pushing a plate of reheated lasagna toward him. "Eat. Mia's been filling me in on your situation. I'm sorry to impose." "You're not imposing. You're surviving." She fixed him with a look that reminded him painfully of his mother. "My husband came back from Vietnam a different man. Took him years to find his feet again. Nobody gets through this life without falling. Question is whether you stay down or get back up." Ethan felt his throat tighten, I'm trying to get back up. Good. Then here's what we know. Mrs. Gruber turned the laptop screen toward him. While you were cleaning up, Mia's father sent over Chin's full report. Vincent Kensington has been operating under at least 9 different aliases over 14 years. Total estimated theft, $63 million. Victims across 7 states. The number stole Ethan's breath. 63 million. How many lives destroyed? How many people like him, left with nothing? There's more, Mia said quietly. 3 of his victims, they're dead. The kitchen went silent. Dead how? Ethan whispered. 2 suicides. 1 accident. Mia's fingers trembled as she scrolled through the report. Jason Stark in Denver jumped from his office building 6 months after his company collapsed. Rebecca McLean in Portland. Overdose, ruled accidental, but family claims she wasn't using. And Thomas Ripley in San Francisco, hit by a car while jogging. Driver never found. Ethan's blood turned to ice. You think Vincent? I think Vincent doesn't leave loose ends. Mrs. Gruber's voice was grim. And I think you two need to be very, very careful about how you proceed. Real talk. If you're watching this and feeling the tension, hit that subscribe button because this story is about to get even more intense. And drop a comment. Would you risk everything to expose the truth, or would you walk away to stay safe? I want to know what you'd do. We can't walk away now, Mia said, echoing Ethan's earlier words. If we stop, Vincent wins. Again, like he's been winning for 14 years. If you continue, you might end up like his other victims. Mrs. Gruber's tone was sharp. This isn't a game, Mia. This man is dangerous. Which is exactly why someone needs to stop him. Mia's voice cracked with emotion. Grammy, you always told me that evil wins when good people do nothing. Well, I'm looking at evil's track record, and I'm not doing nothing. The old woman studied her granddaughter for a long moment, then sighed. You're as stubborn as your father. Fine, but we do this smart. We document everything. We keep copies everywhere, and we make sure that if something happens to you too, the information gets out anyway. A dead man's switch, Ethan said. Exactly. Mrs. Gruber pulled up a secure cloud storage service. We upload everything here, with instructions to release to law enforcement and media if you don't check in every 12 hours. Vincent wants to silence you. He'll have to accept that silencing you means exposing himself. It was clever, ruthless, and absolutely necessary. They spent the next 3 hours building their insurance policy, uploading documents, crafting emails to media outlets with delayed send dates, creating a digital trail that would haunt Vincent Kensington even if they couldn't. By midnight, Ethan was exhausted but wired, lying on Mrs. Gruber's couch and staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow they'd meet the Sterling associate. Tomorrow they'd get closer to Vincent. Tomorrow they'd either find justice or walk into a trap. His phone buzzed. The burner, not his old number. Unknown number. Against every instinct, Ethan opened the message. You're smarter than the others. That makes you more dangerous. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m., Riverside Park, South Entrance. Come alone. I have what you need to destroy Vincent. But if the girl comes, the deal's off. Ethan's hands shook. Who was this? Another victim? Someone inside Vincent's operation? Or Vincent himself, setting the perfect trap? Ethan didn't sleep. He lay on that couch replaying every interaction he'd ever had with Vincent, searching for clues he'd missed, patterns he'd been too blind to see. By the time dawn crept through the curtains, he'd made his decision. He was going to that meeting. Alone? Absolutely not. Mia's voice cut through the kitchen where Ethan was nursing his 3rd cup of coffee at 6 a.m. She stood in the doorway in an oversized sweatshirt, hair messy from sleep, eyes blazing with fury. You're not going alone to meet some mystery person who could be leading you straight to Vincent. Which is exactly why you can't come. Ethan kept his voice level. That text was specific. I come alone, or no deal. If this person actually has information that can destroy Vincent, I can't risk losing it. And if it's a trap, then at least you're safe. He met her eyes. Mia, you've done more for me than anyone had a right to expect. But this isn't your fight. These are my demons. Bullshit. Mia crossed the kitchen in 3 strides. You think I spent yesterday building a dead man's switch just to let you walk into danger alone? We're partners in this. You're 17, and you're homeless and hunted and out of options. Her voice softened. Let me help. Please. Mrs. Gruber appeared in the doorway, already dressed despite the early hour. The girl's right. You go alone, you're vulnerable. But she held up a hand as Mia started to smile. You also can't ignore specific instructions from a potential ally. So we compromise. She pulled out her phone, opened a GPS tracking app, and handed it to Ethan. You wear this. Mia and I monitor from a distance, close enough to help if things go wrong, far enough to not spook your contact. Deal. It was more than fair. Ethan nodded. The Sterling meeting at 3 p.m. went sideways before it even started. Ethan and Mia arrived at the coffee shop on 5th Street at 2:45, scanning for the junior associate, a man named David Porter who'd responded to Mia's journalist email. The place was crowded with the afternoon rush, espresso machines hissing, laptops glowing at every table. Porter was easy to spot, mid-30s, nervous energy, suit that said overworked and underpaid. He sat at a corner booth, fingers drumming against a manila folder. Mr. Porter? Mia extended her hand. Thanks for meeting us. Porter's eyes darted between them, confusion flickering across his face. You're the journalist? I'm her assistant, Ethan said smoothly, sliding into the booth. She's doing a piece on financial fraud. You said you had information about the Corleone case. Porter hesitated, then pushed the folder across the table. I could lose my job for this. But what Sterling and Associates did to you, what they helped Vincent Kane do, it's been eating at me for months. Ethan's pulse quickened. What do you mean, what they helped him do? The senior partner, Marcus Sterling. Porter's voice dropped to barely a whisper. He knew. He knew Vincent was a fraud from the beginning. One of the paralegals found irregularities in the partnership documents, signatures that didn't match, timestamps that were impossible. She brought it to Sterling, and he buried it. The coffee shop seemed to tilt. Why would he do that? Because Vincent was paying him $20,000 a month to keep quiet, to make the documents look legitimate, to make sure that when everything collapsed, you'd be the one holding the bag. Porter's hands shook as he opened the folder. It's all here. Bank transfers from Vincent to Sterling. Emails discussing how to structure the fraud. Even a recorded phone conversation where Sterling coaches Vincent on how to forge your signature. Mia grabbed the folder, flipping through pages of printed evidence. Her face went pale. This is conspiracy. This is a law firm participating in the crime. Sterling and Associates has been Vincent's accomplice for at least 8 years. Maybe longer. Porter looked sick. How many other victims did they help him destroy? How many people lost everything because a law firm decided to profit instead of report a crime? Ethan couldn't breathe. All this time, he thought it was just Vincent. But the lawyers he'd trusted to defend him had been working against him from the start. The system he believed in had been corrupted at its foundation. Why come forward now? Ethan managed. Because I found out about the deaths. Porter's voice cracked. Jason Stark, Rebecca McLean, Thomas Ripley. I pulled their case files. Sterling represented the entities that sued them, just like he represented the investors who sued you. He knew what Vincent was doing to these people, and he kept enabling it even after they started dying. Jesus Christ, Mia whispered. There's more. Porter pulled out another document, a printed email chain. I found this in Sterling's archive correspondence. It's from 2 weeks ago. Ethan read the email, and his blood turned to ice. From V. Kensington. To M. Sterling. Subject, new situation. The Corleone mark is getting attention. Girl asking questions, forensic accountant digging into Cayman accounts. Need this cleaned up before it spirals. Same protocol as Portland? From M. Sterling. To V. Kensington. Subject, new situation. Portland protocol approved. Fee is $50K, usual terms. Make it look accidental. Ethan's hands shook so badly he nearly dropped the paper. Portland protocol. Rebecca McLean in Portland. Overdose ruled accidental. They weren't just talking about silencing an investigation. They were talking about murder. They're going to kill you, Porter said flatly. Vincent and Sterling have done this before, and they're planning to do it again. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm giving you everything I have. Because I'm not watching another person die while I stay silent. Mia grabbed Ethan's arm. We need to go to the police. Right now. With what evidence? Porter shook his head. These documents were obtained illegally. I hacked into Sterling's personal server. The moment we go to police, I'm arrested for corporate espionage. The evidence is thrown out, and Sterling gets a heads up that we're coming. Then what do we do? Ethan's voice was hollow. You do what Vincent doesn't expect. Porter leaned forward. You go public. You release everything, the fraud, the deaths, Sterling's involvement, to every media outlet simultaneously. Make so much noise that Vincent can't silence you without confirming everything you're saying. That's suicide, Mia said. No, staying quiet is suicide. Porter stood, sliding the folder toward them. I've given you the weapon. Now you have to decide if you're brave enough to use it. He walked out without another word, leaving Ethan and Mia staring at a folder full of evidence that could either save them or get them killed. Ethan checked his phone. 12:47 p.m. In less than 2 hours, he had to be at Riverside Park to meet the mysterious contact. In less than 2 hours, he'd be walking into another situation where he had no idea who to trust or what was waiting. Ethan, Mia's voice pulled him back. The meeting at the park. You're still not going. I have to. This person said they have what we need to destroy Vincent. We already have what we need. She slapped her hand on the folder. We have proof of conspiracy, fraud, and planned murder. What more do we need? We need Vincent himself. Ethan's voice was hard. All this evidence, and he's still a ghost. Still out there, still ready to run. That contact knows something we don't. I can feel it. Mia stared at him for a long moment, then pulled out her phone. She opened the GPS tracking app and thrust it at him. Then you wear this. You check in every 15 minutes. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you run. Promise me. Ethan took the phone. I promise. But even as he said it, he knew he was lying. Because whatever was waiting at Riverside Park, whatever truth that mysterious contact was offering, Ethan wasn't running from it. Not anymore. Riverside Park was deceptively peaceful at 2 p.m. Joggers on the paths, families on blankets, the kind of ordinary afternoon that made murder seem impossible. Ethan walked through the south entrance alone, the GPS tracker in his pocket pulsing its silent beacon to wherever Mia and Mrs. Gruber were watching. He found a bench near the river and sat, every nerve ending on fire. Minutes crawled by. 2:05, 2:10, 2:15. Had it been a trap after all? A way to get him alone and... Ethan Corleone. You look better than your photos. The voice came from behind him. Female, controlled, familiar in a way that made his skin crawl. He turned slowly. The woman standing there was stunning. Mid-40s, designer clothes, perfect makeup, the kind of polish that came from money and maintenance. It took Ethan 3 full seconds to recognize her. Catherine Soprano, Vincent's sister. The one he'd met once at a company dinner. The one Vincent said was an international consultant who traveled constantly. You, Ethan breathed. Me. She sat beside him, crossing her legs with practiced elegance. Surprised? You're working with him. You helped him. Helped him. Catherine laughed, bitter and sharp. Sweetheart, I taught him. Vincent's the face, the charm, the closer. But I'm the architect. I design the cons. I vet the marks. I move the money where it can't be traced. The world tilted sideways. Why would you tell me this? Because I'm dying. She said it matter-of-factly, like commenting on the weather. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe less. And I'm tired of watching my brother make the same mistakes I taught him to avoid. Ethan's mind raced. You're the one who sent the warning. You're monitoring our investigation. Of course I am. I monitor everything. That's how we've stayed ahead for so long. She pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen, and showed him surveillance footage. Ethan and Mia in the library, leaving the mall, entering Mrs. Gruber's apartment. You've been sloppy. Understandable, given your circumstances, but sloppy nonetheless. Ice flooded Ethan's veins. Are you here to kill me? If I wanted you dead, you'd be dead. Catherine's tone was almost gentle. No, I'm here because for the first time in 14 years, someone's gotten close enough to actually threaten our operation. And I'm impressed. I'm not interested in your approval. But you are interested in destroying Vincent. She leaned closer. I can give you everything. His real identity, his current location, access to accounts holding $40 million. Enough evidence to put him away for life. In exchange for what? In exchange for letting me disappear. Catherine's mask slipped, showing something raw underneath. I'm dying, Mr. Corleone. I don't care about prison, but I do care about spending my last months free. You get Vincent, I get a death that isn't behind bars. We both get what we want. It was too convenient. Too perfect. Why would you betray your own brother? Because Vincent's gotten reckless. The deaths were never part of the plan. Those were Sterling's idea, and Vincent went along with it. I built a career on elegant fraud, not murder. Her voice hardened. And because Vincent stole from me, $500,000 from my personal accounts, moved to cover his gambling debts. Family only matters until it doesn't. Ethan wanted to believe her. God, he wanted this to be real, a shortcut to justice, to reclaiming his life. But every instinct screamed trap. How do I know this isn't just another con? You don't. Catherine stood, dropping a USB drive onto the bench. But that contains enough evidence to start. Account numbers, transfer records, Vincent's real passport under his birth name, Victor Kensington. Flight manifests showing his movements. Communications with Sterling discussing the Portland Protocol. Ethan stared at the drive like it might explode. One more thing. Catherine's voice dropped. Mia Gruber. The girl helping you. Vincent knows who she is. He knows where she lives. He's planning to use her to keep you quiet. Leverage, he calls it. Sterling's already drawn up legal papers to have her arrested as an accomplice to corporate espionage based on that journalist email she sent. The ground disappeared beneath Ethan's feet. You're lying. Check the drive. There's an email from Sterling dated yesterday morning. Catherine started walking away, then paused. You have 48 hours before Vincent moves on her. After that, she becomes another Rebecca McLean. Another tragic accident. Your choice whether you let that happen. She disappeared into the crowd before Ethan could respond. He grabbed the USB drive with shaking hands and ran. Mrs. Gruber's apartment felt like a war room when Ethan burst through the door. Mia and her grandmother looked up from the laptop, alarm flashing across their faces. What happened? Mia demanded. Catherine Soprano. Vincent's sister. She's the real mastermind. The words tumbled out as Ethan thrust the USB drive at Mrs. Gruber. She gave me this. Says it contains everything we need to destroy Vincent. But we have to let her walk. And you believe her? Mrs. Gruber's tone was skeptical. I don't know what to believe. But she also said. Ethan turned to Mia, his chest tight. She said Vincent knows who you are? That he's planning to use you as leverage. That Sterling's preparing legal documents to have you arrested. Mia's face went white. What? Mrs. Gruber was already plugging in the USB, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Files populated the screen, spreadsheets, scanned documents, email chains, photographs. Months, maybe years of evidence, laid out in meticulous detail. It's real, Mrs. Gruber whispered. Dear God, it's all real. Ethan leaned over her shoulder, scanning the files. Account numbers in the Caymans, Luxembourg, Singapore. Transfer records showing exactly how Vincent moved money through shell corporations. Flight manifests tracking Victor Kensington's movements across 3 continents. And then he saw it, the email Catherine had mentioned. From M. Sterling. To V. Kensington. Subject, the Gruber girl. Surveillance confirms she's the journalist contact. Easy to frame for corporate espionage and hacking. Can have arrest warrant drafted by Friday. Once she's in custody, Corleone will comply or she takes the fall for all of it. Mia read over his shoulder, her breath coming in short gasps. They're going to arrest me? Frame me for crimes I didn't commit. Or worse. Ethan's voice was hollow. Rebecca McLean died before she could be arrested. They made it look like an overdose. The implication hung in the air like poison. We go to the police, Mia said desperately. Right now? We show them everything. And Sterling's connections make it disappear before it ever reaches the right people. Mrs. Gruber's face was grim. Porter was right. The system is compromised. Going through official channels just gives them time to silence us. Then what do we do? Mia's voice cracked. Ethan stared at the screen, at the evidence of 14 years of systematic destruction. At the names of victims who trusted the wrong person. At the proof that powerful people would rather kill than face consequences. You know what? If this story is getting under your skin, if you're feeling the weight of how unfair this is, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. We're in the thick of it now, and I promise you, justice is coming. Drop a comment telling me what you'd do if you were Ethan right now. We burn it all down, Ethan said quietly. We release everything simultaneously, police, media, social media, every platform we can access. We make so much noise that they can't silence us without proving we were right. That's declaring war, Mrs. Gruber said. They declared war the moment they decided to kill people to protect their profits. Ethan turned to Mia. But you can't be part of this. If they're planning to frame you, you need to disappear. Now, before they can execute their plan. Disappear where? Mia's eyes were wet. This is my home. My grandmother. My life. And it'll still be here after this is over. Mrs. Gruber's voice was firm. But the boy's right. They know where we live. They're watching. We need to move you somewhere safe while we expose these bastards. What about you? Mia looked at her grandmother. If they come here, then they'll find an old woman who doesn't scare easily. Mrs. Gruber smiled grimly. I've survived worse than corporate criminals. But Ethan saw the fear in her eyes. The calculation. They were all targets now. Every single one of them. And somewhere out there, Vincent Kensington was making his own calculations. Deciding who to silence first. Deciding how to make it look accidental. Ethan's phone buzzed. Another unknown number. His hands trembled as he opened the message. Clever boy, meeting with my sister. But she's dying and desperate. I'm not. Walk away now, or everyone you care about pays the price. Starting with the girl. You have 24 hours to decide. The message included a photo. It was Mia, taken through a window. Taken from outside Mrs. Gruber's apartment. Taken less than 5 minutes ago. The apartment exploded into controlled chaos. Windows. Now. Mrs. Gruber was already moving, yanking curtains closed with practiced efficiency. Mia, pack a bag. Essentials only. Ethan, copy those files to every cloud service you can access. We have maybe 10 minutes before they make a move. They're watching us right now. Mia's voice shook as she grabbed a backpack from her room. How do we get out without them following? Ethan's mind raced through options, each one more desperate than the last. They were trapped. 3 people against a criminal network with resources, connections, and a proven willingness to kill. Then something clicked. We don't get out, Ethan said slowly. We let them think we're trapped, and we use that against them. Mrs. Gruber turned. Explain. Vincent gave us 24 hours because he thinks we're cornered. He thinks we'll panic, make mistakes, try to run. Ethan grabbed the laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. But we're not running. We're setting a trap. With us as bait. Mia looked at him like he'd lost his mind. With Vincent as bait. Ethan pulled up the evidence from Catherine's USB drive, cross-referencing it with Chin's earlier findings. Catherine gave us Vincent's real identity, Victor Kensington. She gave us his movements, his accounts, his patterns. But she left out one thing. What? Where he is right now. Ethan's eyes scanned the flight manifests, the credit card records, the hotel reservations. Catherine wants us to go after Vincent. But she didn't give us his current location because she doesn't want us to find him yet. She wants us to release the evidence, let the police chase him while she disappears. So we find him ourselves. Mrs. Gruber leaned over his shoulder. The files show his patterns. Where would he be? Ethan studied the data with the same analytical mind that had built a multi-million-dollar company. Vincent moved in cycles, 6 months in one city, then vanish. New identity, new marks, new operation. But underneath the chaos, there were constants. Hotels and specific chains. Restaurants with particular cuisines. Cities with certain characteristics. He likes control, Ethan muttered. Close to airports, but not too close. High in neighborhoods where money doesn't attract attention. Cities with strong tech sectors for potential marks. Seattle, Mia said suddenly. Look, 3 different credit cards, all charged at restaurants in downtown Seattle over the past 2 weeks. Different names, but same neighborhood. Ethan zoomed in on the data. She was right. Victor Kensington might be using multiple identities, but he couldn't hide his habits. The man who destroyed Ethan's life was less than 3 hours away by plane. We go to Seattle, Ethan said. We find Vincent ourselves, we document everything, and then we release it all, his location, his crimes, the evidence. We don't give him time to run. That's insane. Mia stared at him. If Vincent is watching this apartment, how do we even get to the airport? We call the police. Mrs. Gruber's voice was steady. Not to turn over evidence. Not yet. We report a prowler. Someone watching the building, making us feel unsafe. We ask for a patrol car to check the area. Ethan saw the brilliance of it immediately. The police presence forces Vincent's surveillance to back off or risk being noticed. In that window, we leave. Not through the front door. Mrs. Gruber was already moving toward the back of the apartment. Building has a service exit that connects to the alley. Maintenance uses it for deliveries. If Vincent's people are watching the front entrance and windows, they might have missed it. It was a slim chance, but it was a chance. Mrs. Gruber made the call while Mia and Ethan grabbed essentials. the laptop with copied files, phones, cash Mrs. Gruber pulled from a hidden safe, and the USB drive that held the evidence to destroy Vincent's empire. Police are sending a unit. ETA 8 minutes. Mrs. Gruber hung up, then pulled out a gun from the same safe. Ethan's eyes widened. Vietnam made my husband paranoid, she said calmly, checking the magazine. But sometimes paranoia keeps you alive. I'm staying here to make it look like we're all still inside. You two go to Seattle. Find that son of a bitch. And end this. Grammy, no. Yes. The old woman's voice left no room for argument. I can handle myself, and I'll be safer with police nearby than you will be hunting a killer. Now go. Before the window closes. Mia hugged her grandmother fiercely, tears streaming down her face. I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. Now move. The service exit led to an alley that smelled like garbage and rain. Ethan and Mia moved fast, keeping to shadows, constantly checking behind them. Every footstep sounded too loud. Every passing car felt like a threat. They made it 3 blocks before Ethan dared to flag down a taxi. Airport, he said, sliding into the back seat next to Mia. Fast. The driver, an older man with kind eyes, glanced in the rearview mirror. You two okay? Look like you're running from something. We are, Mia said quietly. From someone who thinks he's untouchable. Oh. The driver nodded, pulling into traffic. I know that type. My advice. Make him touchable. Nothing humbles a powerful man faster than realizing his power was an illusion. They were words of wisdom from a stranger who'd never know how much they mattered. Ethan felt something shift in his chest. Not quite hope, but something close. Determination. Purpose. For months, he'd been a victim. A ghost haunting the streets of a city that had discarded him. But that man was gone. The person sitting in this taxi, planning to confront a serial criminal who destroyed dozens of lives. That was someone new. Someone who refused to stay broken. At the airport, they bought tickets on a credit card Mia had gotten for emergencies. They had 2 hours before the flight. 2 hours to prepare for what came next. Ethan opened the laptop in a quiet corner of the terminal and started drafting the message that would go to every media outlet, every police department, every platform that could amplify their story. He wrote about Vincent's 14 years of fraud, about Sterling's complicity, about the victims who'd died, about the system that had protected predators over people. And if you're still with me, if you're feeling the fire of someone finally fighting back, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to be braver than you thought possible? Because that's what Ethan and Mia are doing right now. Being impossibly, necessarily brave. When do we release it? Mia asked. The moment we have eyes on Vincent. Ethan's voice was hard. We confirm his location, we document it, and then we blow up his entire world simultaneously. He won't have time to run. He won't have time to kill anyone else. He'll be too busy trying to survive the exposure. What if he sees us first? Then we adapt. Ethan closed the laptop. But I'm done being afraid of him. Vincent built his empire on victims who were too isolated, too scared, too ashamed to fight back. But we're not isolated anymore. We have evidence. We have allies. We have the truth. And each other, Mia added quietly. Ethan looked at this 17-year-old girl who'd bought him a meal when he was dying on a sidewalk, who'd risked everything to help a stranger, who'd become the partner he'd thought he had in Vincent but never did. And each other, he agreed. The flight boarding call echoed through the terminal. Ethan and Mia stood, shouldering their bags, walking toward a gate that would take them to Seattle. To Vincent. To the end of this nightmare, one way or another. Ethan's phone buzzed one last time. He expected another threat from Vincent. Instead, it was a text from Mrs. Gruber. Police found surveillance equipment on the building across the street. Someone was watching with professional-grade cameras. They're investigating now. You were right to run. Finish this. Make him pay. Ethan showed the message to Mia. She squeezed his hand, her grip fierce and steady. For your company, she said. For the victims. For everyone Vincent thought he could destroy without consequences. For all of them, Ethan replied. They boarded the plane to Seattle, carrying nothing but a laptop full of evidence and the determination to see justice done. Behind them, the city where Ethan had lost everything grew smaller. Ahead of them, the city where he would reclaim it waited in the darkness. And somewhere in that city, Vincent Kensington had no idea that his victims had finally found their courage. That his time was running out. That justice was coming, and it would not be stopped. Seattle's downtown glittered with rain-slicked streets and neon reflections. Ethan and Mia stood outside the Meridian Hotel at 11 p.m., watching luxury cars pull up to the valet, watching people who had no idea a predator lived among them. Third time this week, Vincent's credit card was charged at the restaurant inside. Mia whispered, checking her phone. He's staying here. Has to be. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. After everything, the investigation, the threats, the narrow escape, they were here. 50 feet from the man who'd destroyed his life. We confirm visual identification, Ethan said, repeating the plan they'd crafted on the plane. We take photos, we document everything, and then we release the files. All at once. No warning. They entered the hotel lobby, all marble and crystal chandeliers, and the kind of understated wealth that Vincent always gravitated toward. Ethan felt acutely aware of his borrowed clothes, his still gaunt frame, the way he looked like someone who didn't belong. Because he didn't. Not anymore. Not in this world of easy money and easier lies. The hotel bar was intimate, dimly lit, jazz playing softly over conversation. Ethan and Mia took a table in the corner with a clear view of the room. And then Ethan saw him. Vincent Kane, Victor Kensington, whatever name he wore tonight. Sitting at the bar in an expensive suit, martini in hand, laughing at something the bartender said. He looked exactly the same. Same confident smile. Same easy charm. Same mask that hid a monster. Rage flooded Ethan's system, white-hot and consuming. This man had taken everything. Had left him to die on a sidewalk. Had planned to kill Mia just to keep his secrets safe. Ethan. Mia's hand on his arm was the only thing that kept him from crossing the room. Not yet. We do this smart. She was right. Ethan forced himself to breathe, to think. He pulled out his phone and started taking photos. Vincent at the bar, Vincent's reflection in the mirror, Vincent's credit card when he paid the bartender. Then something unexpected happened. A woman approached Vincent. Mid-30s, nervous energy, tablet clutched in her hands. Even from across the room, Ethan could read the body language. Someone desperate for an opportunity. Someone vulnerable. Someone Vincent was about to destroy. He's working, Mia breathed. Right now? He's setting up his next victim. Ethan watched Vincent shift into his performance. The warm smile, the interested questions, the way he leaned in like every word she said was fascinating. He'd seen that same performance directed at himself. Had fallen for every gesture, every calculated moment of connection. We can't let him do this again, Ethan said. We won't. Mia was already typing, uploading files to the cloud, preparing the release. 2 more minutes, and everything goes live. Police, media, social platforms. No. Ethan stood. We end this now. Face to face. Ethan, that's not the plan. But he was already moving, crossing the bar with purpose that came from somewhere deep and furious. The woman saw him first, her eyes widening at his intensity. Vincent turned, and for one beautiful second, Ethan saw genuine shock cross his face. Hello, Vincent. Ethan's voice cut through the jazz music. Or should I call you Victor? Vincent recovered quickly, but not quickly enough. The woman looked between them, confusion flickering. You two know each other? We were business partners, Ethan said, never breaking eye contact with Vincent. Until he stole $12 million and destroyed my company. Left me homeless. Planned to kill me if I got too close to the truth. That's insane. Vincent's smile was strained. I'm sorry. I think you have me confused with someone else. Victor Kensington. Ethan pulled out his phone, showing the woman the evidence files. 14 years of fraud. 9 aliases. $63 million stolen. 3 victims dead. And you're his next target. The woman stared at the screen, her face going pale. She looked at Vincent, searching for denial, for explanation. Vincent's mask finally cracked. You should have stayed broken, he said quietly. All pretense gone. You should have accepted that you lost. But you had to be a hero. I had to survive. Ethan's voice shook. All of us did. Jason Stark. Rebecca McClane. Thomas Ripley. Everyone you've destroyed. We deserve to survive. They were weak. Vincent's tone was cold. They couldn't adapt. They couldn't fight back. That's not my fault. You killed them. Ethan's shout drew attention across the bar. Good. Let everyone hear this. You and Sterling planned their deaths because they got too close to exposing you. Vincent's eyes darted to the exits, calculating. But Mia was already there, blocking the nearest door, her phone raised and recording everything. "It's over, Vincent," Ethan said. "We have everything. Your real identity. Your accounts. Communications with Sterling about the murders. Evidence from Catherine before she decided to save herself. It's all going to the police, the media, everyone. Right now." He nodded at Mia. She hit send. The message went out to 47 different recipients simultaneously: police departments, investigative journalists, social media platforms, federal agencies. The email contained everything: names, dates, account numbers, photos, recorded conversations. A complete and devastating map of Vincent's criminal empire. Vincent watched his phone light up with incoming notifications, watched his carefully constructed world begin to collapse in real time. "You think this changes anything?" His voice was venom. "You think you've won? I think you're done hurting people." Ethan stepped closer. "I think your face is about to be plastered across every news outlet in the country. I think every law enforcement agency is about to freeze your accounts, track your movements, and close every escape route you've spent years building." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "And I think," Ethan continued, "that for the first time in 14 years, you're about to feel what your victims felt. Helpless, cornered, watching everything you built fall apart." Vincent lunged. It was desperate, wild, a man with nothing left to lose. His fist connected with Ethan's jaw, sending him staggering. The bar erupted in chaos. The woman screamed. Vincent bolted for the exit. But hotel security was already there, responding to the disturbance. And behind them, Seattle police poured through the doors, guns drawn, shouting commands. Vincent froze. Ethan watched from the floor as officers surrounded the man who'd haunted his nightmares for months. "Victor Kensington," an officer barked, "you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and suspected involvement in multiple homicides. You have the right to remain silent." The words faded as Ethan's vision blurred. Mia was beside him, helping him up, her voice a steady anchor. "We did it," she whispered. "It's over." Ethan watched Vincent being handcuffed, watched him being led away, watched the mask finally shatter completely to reveal the cornered, terrified man underneath. Not a genius, not untouchable, just a criminal who'd finally run out of places to hide. If you've made it this far, if you've felt every moment of this journey, do me a favor and subscribe. Because this is what this channel is about: watching people fight back, watching justice win, watching courage triumph over fear. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you say to Vincent right now if you were Ethan? Across the bar, the woman Vincent had been targeting approached Ethan cautiously. "Thank you," she said, voice shaking. "I was about to invest everything in his fake company. You just saved my life." "We all saved each other," Ethan replied, meaning it. Outside, more police cars arrived. Federal agents. Media vans with satellite dishes. The story was breaking in real time. A massive fraud investigation spanning 14 years and multiple states. Sterling and Associates was already being raided. Catherine Soprano was being tracked. The entire network was collapsing. And Ethan Corleone, the man who'd nearly died on a sidewalk 3 days ago, had brought it all down. Not alone, never alone, but with courage, determination, and one teenage girl who refused to walk past someone who needed help. 3 months later, Ethan stood outside the federal courthouse in downtown Seattle, watching the media circus that had become Victor Kensington's trial. Cameras everywhere. Reporters shouting questions. Federal prosecutors carrying boxes of evidence that would put Vincent away for decades. "You ready?" Mia appeared beside him, no longer in worn sneakers, but still carrying that same fierce determination in her eyes. "As ready as I'll ever be." Ethan adjusted the tie he still wasn't used to wearing. Clean-shaven, properly dressed, looking like the man he used to be, but feeling like someone entirely new. They climbed the courthouse steps together, past microphones and cameras, past reporters who'd turned Ethan's story into national news. "The comeback CEO," some headlines called him. "From homeless to hero," said others. Ethan didn't feel like a hero. He felt like someone who'd survived. Inside the courtroom, the gallery was packed. Ethan spotted familiar faces. Mrs. Gruber in the front row, her expression proud and fierce. Chun, the forensic accountant who'd started this investigation. David Porter, the junior associate who'd risked everything to provide evidence. And in the defendant's chair, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of expensive suits, sat Vincent Kensington. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. All the charm and confidence stripped away to reveal the hollow man underneath. When his eyes met Ethan's, there was no recognition of wrongdoing. No remorse. Just cold, empty resentment. Some people, Ethan realized, never learned. Never changed. Never understood that their actions had consequences. But the justice system understood. And today, that was enough. The prosecution called Ethan to the stand first. He walked past Vincent without flinching, took his oath, and told his story. Every detail. The partnership. The trust. The systematic destruction. The months of homelessness. The near death on that sidewalk. And the moment a 17-year-old girl stopped to help when everyone else walked by. Mr. Corleone, the prosecutor said, can you quantify the damage Vincent Kensington caused to your life? Ethan thought about it. How do you quantify losing everything? How do you put a number on despair? He took $12 million, Ethan said slowly. He took my company, my reputation, my home. But more than that, he took my faith in people. He made me believe that kindness was a weakness and trust was a liability. He paused. And then people like Mia Gruber, Mrs. Gruber, Mr. Chun, and David Porter showed me I was wrong. They proved that for every Vincent Kensington in the world, there are a dozen people willing to fight for what's right. In the gallery, Mia wiped tears from her eyes. The trial lasted 3 days. Witness after witness testified. Other victims Vincent had destroyed, forensic accountants who'd traced the money, federal agents who'd unraveled the conspiracy. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus Sterling, Vincent's lawyer accomplice, had already taken a plea deal. 20 years in federal prison in exchange for testimony against Vincent. He'd looked broken on the stand, admitting to his role in fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Admitting that he'd known about the deaths, that he'd helped cover them up. Catherine Soprano had disappeared, using her terminal illness to negotiate immunity in exchange for cooperation. The feds had frozen her accounts, but she'd escaped prosecution. Ethan tried not to think about that, about how even in justice, sometimes the guilty slipped away. On the third day, the jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled for their phones. Victims' family members sobbed with relief. Ethan felt Mia grab his hand, felt Mrs. Gruber's arm around his shoulders, felt the weight of months of fear finally lift. Vincent showed nothing, just stared straight ahead as the judge read his sentence. 45 years in federal prison, restitution to all victims, forfeiture of all assets. He would die in prison. An old man, forgotten, his legacy nothing but a cautionary tale about greed and cruelty. As they led him away, Vincent looked back one last time. Not at Ethan. At Mia. The girl who'd started everything by refusing to walk past a dying man on a sidewalk. She met his gaze without flinching, without fear. Vincent looked away first. Outside the courthouse, the cameras found them immediately. Mr. Corleone, how do you feel about the verdict? What's next for you? Will you rebuild your company? Ethan raised a hand for quiet. The questions died down. 3 months ago, I was homeless, starving, convinced that my life was over. His voice carried across the courthouse steps. Vincent Kensington took everything from me, but he couldn't take my will to survive. He couldn't take the kindness of strangers who decided to help, and he couldn't take the truth. He turned to Mia. This young woman saved my life, not just by buying me a meal, but by believing I was worth saving, by refusing to let injustice win. If there's a hero in this story, it's her. Mia blushed, looking uncomfortable with the attention. I just did what anyone should do. But most people don't, Ethan said gently. That's what makes it heroic. A reporter shouted another question. What's next for you, Mr. Corleone? Ethan smiled. A real smile, the first and longer than he could remember. Rebuilding. Not just my company, but something bigger. He pulled out his phone, showing a website mock-up he'd been working on. A foundation. To help people who've been victimized by financial fraud. To provide legal support, financial assistance, and most importantly, hope. Because nobody should have to face what I faced alone. The Gruber Foundation? Another reporter read from the screen. Named after the family that saved me when I had nothing. Ethan looked at Mia and Mrs. Gruber. They gave me a second chance. This foundation will give that same chance to others. The questions continued, but Ethan stepped back, letting the lawyers handle the media. He walked with Mia and Mrs. Gruber to a coffee shop across the street. the kind of ordinary place where extraordinary things began. They ordered breakfast. Real food, paid for with money Ethan had earned from the restitution settlement and from investors who'd reached out after hearing his story. People who believed in second chances, in redemption, in the power of resilience. So, Mia said, picking at her pancakes, what really happens now? Now, Ethan took a bite of eggs that tasted like victory. Now I honor everyone who helped me. I build something that matters. And I make sure Vincent's victims know they weren't alone, that their suffering meant something. That's a lot of responsibility, Mrs. Gruber observed. I've carried worse. Ethan met her eyes. I've carried hopelessness. Purpose is lighter. His phone buzzed. An email from MIT, his alma mater. They wanted him to speak at graduation, to tell his story, to inspire students about resilience and ethics and the importance of fighting back when systems fail. Another email. A tech investment firm offering to fund a new startup if he ever wanted to build again. Another. A victim of Vincent's, thanking him for having the courage to expose the truth. The messages kept coming. Opportunities. Gratitude. Connection. Ethan had lost everything 3 months ago. But in losing everything, he'd discovered what truly mattered. Not money or success or recognition, but kindness, courage, the refusal to let cruelty win, and the simple, revolutionary act of one person stopping to help another. Thank you, he said to Mia, for everything, for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you for being worth seeing, she replied. They finished breakfast together, 3 people who'd become family through crisis. 3 people who'd proven that justice wasn't just a concept, but a choice. A decision to stand up when standing up seemed impossible. Outside, the city moved on. People rushed to work, to meetings, to lives that seemed ordinary but held infinite possibility for both kindness and cruelty. Ethan walked into that city a different man than the one who'd collapsed on a sidewalk 3 months ago. Stronger, wiser, unbroken. He'd lost his company, lost his money, lost everything that had defined him. But he'd gained something infinitely more valuable. He'd gained himself back. And this time, he knew exactly what to do with it. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that one act of kindness can change everything, please subscribe to this channel. Share this story with someone who needs hope. And remember, you never know when you might be the person who stops to help. When you might be the Mia in someone else's story. Drop a comment and tell me about a time someone helped you, or a time you helped someone else. Because these stories matter. Your story matters. And together, we prove that kindness is stronger than cruelty, that truth is more powerful than lies, and that no matter how far you fall, you can always rise again. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for believing that good people still exist in this world. See you in the next story. Stay kind. Stay brave. Stay hopeful.